Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the underrated movie, The Kid Who Would Be King.
Definitely underrated. And in this modern day adaptation on the story of Excalibur, Alex thinks he's just another nobody until he stumbles upon the mythical sword in the stone, Excalibur! Now, he must unite his friends and enemies into a band of knights, and together with the legendary wizard Merlin, take on the wicked enchantress Morgana.
Yes. Now the other version we've really seen of the story has either been Merlin or Sword in the Stone. But before we get into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
Definitely. Now I've seen more than you, because I've seen more Merlin movies before you were born. So I've actually seen more. But my favorite out of the ones we've watched together is Merlin, the BBC series.
Yes.
And I actually really ended up loving this movie.
Right. Yeah, and the thing was, we didn't know how it was going to be because after it hit theaters, there were no more advertisements for it. We didn't even know what was out on DVD until like much later because it was advertised very heavily, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. Not because it wasn't popular, it just wasn't advertised well. We did well as critics. It made us a great amount of money at the box office, but it just didn't have a staying power with people saying, oh, you gotta see this movie's amazing. And that never happened for some reason.
I think one of the reasons is because the entire cast is unknown in America. Now, just a fun fact, the one who plays Arthur's replacement, the future king, Louis Ashburn Serkis, is Andy Serkis's son, the one who plays in the Planet of the Apes, who voices the main one.
Right.
And some other, I mean, he's real famous, you know who he is. But I think because people weren't familiar with anyone in the cast at all, that's another reason. When I really think about it, I don't think it did well. There was no one for them to promote or to attach to that Americans. So, oh, this person's in the movie, I gotta see it. There was no one in there like that.
Right. The closest they had was maybe Rebecca Ferguson, who's known for some other roles, and that's really it. There's not the heavy hitters, for at least for Americans, that were like, oh my gosh.
Exactly, and I think that's why it really didn't get the promotion it deserved to get as well. So, this movie starts off like most movies do that star children, bully, taunting, and torturing.
At school, it's like, wow, I guess nothing else happens in kids' lives. That's pretty, not right, so.
But in the slight twist in this movie, the enemies end up being friends. Not right off the bat, like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, we're friends, yay! No, it didn't happen like that. It took almost half the movie before they actually became allies rather than enemies. And the way that it happened, it wasn't the cheesy way in which it happened. Each side, the enemy, the bullies I should say, and the ones they were bullying, they had to grow and come to trust each other, and it was done in a really good way.
Right. And they didn't really have that many tropes when it came to, you know, how the story needs to unfold and things. Like, if someone gave them instruction, they actually did it, because usually it's like them pondering, should they listen, or do they know better, or they didn't listen or something. And here, the only time they didn't is if they were forced to do the action, or else it would cost someone's life.
Right.
Or some magical thing happened where they weren't able to do what they said, so it was out of their control, which made it much more believable than them just doing what they want, which is a trope you see so many times here.
Right. Another thing I think in terms of promotion that really counted against it is I remember the ads, and for some stupid reason the studio decided to try to make it seem like it was a Harry Potter movie. Just so you know, spoiler alert, it is nothing like Harry Potter at all. There is no magic school, and it just doesn't exist. And why they chose to go that route to try to make it seem familiar really works against the merits of the movie itself. Right.
And they also try to make it look like a comedy. A lot of stuff, they only played the humorous parts. Now, the parts were funny, but that wasn't the whole movie. The whole movie wasn't just slapstick comedy.
Definitely.
It was humorous, but it was a family, adventure, action, fantasy. It was all sorts of things with humor in it. That wasn't the focal point of everything. But when they did have humor, they did really have lots of hits when it came to the stuff like like with Merlin, you know, he's thousands of years old, but he needs to stay in this like kid form because he's kind of weaker in his regular form. And
Hundreds.
Hundreds of years. Okay. And there's this one thing they do, and you know, usually they have either they speak in Latin to the spells, or they say something in English that rhymes with this, and others, and there's some incantation. And here he just does this thing like he's hand boning or something with his hands like they're sneeze, and then he does magic. It's like, that's different. Like, that's all you have to wear. Like, oh, you shouldn't be repeating those. Well, they're not saying anything bad. They're just doing hand boning.
And also in this version, his powers are not effective if he can change into a bird. But if he uses that power to change into a bird, then he has to wait until the next morning before he's able to do anything and can help him again.
Right.
So that was a really different twist on Merlin and his powers.
Right.
Them being limited. When we've seen them in other movies and television shows, Merlin has unlimited power.
Right.
I do like in this one that they actually gave him limitations,
right,
which made it more interesting.
Right. And another fun part of it for Merlin was that when they had where he needs to recharge, like he's low on magic and stuff, and he needs all these sort of weird things you see, like when they have potion stuff in the lab.
But don't tell them, because if you haven't seen it, it won't be as hilarious if we tell you and spoil it. But yes, she's absolutely right. It is hilarious what he finds in modern times to recharge his powers.
Then you're like, oh gosh.
So I have to say, I don't know much about Louis Circus. I don't know if this was his first movie or if he's done other movies, but I can say his acting here is spectacular. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that he's being trained. I don't know if it's being training with the school or with his dad or both, but he's absolutely fabulous. And the entire cast is fabulous. Everyone did a great job in portraying the characters. They were all believable. There were no plot holes, and you were thinking there were going to be, but they weren't.
Right.
And it just really was a fantastic journey. That's more of what it was like. It was a journey on this young boy finding out that he's going to be heir to the throne. Mm-hmm. And what he goes through. And he just, we can tell you this is not a spoiler because that's always how it works. Oh, they're playing around, they see the sword. Oh, no one can pull it out. Suddenly he pulls it out.
Right, it's like with Thor's hammer.
And he's like, nope, don't want to do it, don't want to do it, don't want to do this, don't want to be bothered with this. Oh, no, I don't want to do it. Forget it, take it back.
Right, here, I don't want it. That's hilarious. And like I said, there's so many great moments in here, especially when they have the action. It didn't have to be large. It didn't get large scale until it got towards the last leg of the movie. Right. And it wasn't like, oh, you wait all this time for a little action. There was actually a full-on battle scene that came up twice because you thought it was over at one point, but then like you look at the runtime, it's like there's still more left.
Yes.
And dealing with the villain Morgana, she was handled much differently from many other incarnations.
That's true.
And here, of course, you know she's evil, but she's been hiding. It's like Unicron, where she's in the earth, and then she can see everything that's going on in the earth, and she's waiting for someone to get the sword so that she can attack them and take it for herself. Mm-hmm. And she gets all this power, like Maleficent, and she has she can make like monsters and stuff out of the earth. Mm-hmm. So she's already a threat, even if she couldn't move. And then when it came where she was right into the surface, then it was even worse. So it just kept escalating.
Yes, all hell broke loose when she got out. That's just the best way to put it.
Right.
Now, if you have seen the BBC series, like we have, you'll know at the end of that series, Merlin was charged with walking the earth until the new king emerges.
Right.
And again, with hundreds and hundreds of years later, you see him at the end of the series. He's dressed in modern clothes with a hoodie and jeans and stuff, and he's just walking on the highway with a beard. Mm-hmm. And it was the same in this one. Merlin was charged with waiting for the future king. Of course, the series never rebooted. They never made another season. And basically, you're just left with, okay, well, I guess the king never came. This movie took it and said, guess what? There's a future king. And
right.
Here he is. And he's a kid.
Right.
And away we go.
Right. And another thing I want to point out in terms of the writing is that it's very, very, if you pay attention, a lot of it's very positive in every aspect from the story and even with the conflict and stuff of Alex. You know, he wants to know what happened to his dad. Why isn't his dad around? Dealing with the bullies, dealing with the sword, and finding his place and stuff. You know, for a lot of movies you usually see, they have this trope, and the tropes go exactly the way you think, and then you can predict the whole movie and be on your way before you even finish it. But for here, it's more in a positive light as to, even with all the billions of references that they made to other movies,
yes,
they kept the movie's whole message was keep going forward,
yes,
because it's gonna pay off. And the payoff for him was, like you said, getting the sword, saving the world, being an heir. He wasn't the nobody he was perceived as, and he was making friends out of enemies, as they have it. And it was a really great message on keeping going.
And also about having confidence in yourself, because he was like, he just had no confidence in himself. And it wasn't a self-esteem issue, it was just he didn't have confidence that he could do things. And of course this journey gave him that, and not only to him but to his best friend and to the bullies who become allies. They all learned these lessons, which was fantastic.
Right.
And it's just a wonderful movie, and if you've never seen it, you really should. This is another one we got to watch during the Watchathon week. There were so many great movies we'd never seen, so many anime shows that we never even knew about we got to see. So it was a wonderful week. Netflix suffered because we were so busy watching
Right, it's like you haven't entered your account in quite some time.
So if you have seen this movie, let us know what you think in the comments below, especially if you went to the theater to see it. Let us know how the experience was there. And if you haven't, again, this is a movie you absolutely should make a point of seeing. Don't believe what you've seen. Don't think about the commercials. Just go into it knowing that this is going to be a movie you're going to be so happy that you watched, and you're going to definitely want to tell other people about watching it as well.
Right. Oh, and be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on in the form of a locket.